Howdy. Today we're going to go over the recent nerfs that were dished out in Arc Raiders to both trigger nades and the Kettle. Are they still good? Should you still use them? Is cereal a soup? All these questions and more will be answered today, starting with trigger nades. Ever since Arc Raiders came out, trigger nades have been dummy powerful. Not only did they hit like a Mike Tyson uppercut, but they had a gigantic blast radius and could be detonated almost immediately after being thrown. Even game devs from Embark Studios were joking in interviews about how good these things were. Again, they were just nerfed the other day. Why don't we cover the part in the patch notes about damage falloff being rebalanced real quick. I think if you were one of the players worried about trigger nades not hitting as hard after the nerf, you can put that fear to bed real quick. They still hit insanely goddamn hard across the board. And yeah, the falloff damage has changed, but by a really minor amount. Check it out. Here I am in the practice range before and after the trigger nade nerf. I detonate a trigger nade on myself while standing only a few feet away in the exact same spot. And look, after the nerf, I have taken slightly less damage from the blast, but I mean, it's still a lot of damage. Now here's another clip of me standing a bit further back still. I detonate the trigger nade, and again, you will notice me taking less damage after the nerf, but again, you're still taking a metric butt ton of damage. They're still incredibly powerful. And maybe one more, because why not? Standing even further away, and yeah, I take less damage after the nerf, but I'm still taking a ton of damage overall. So if you're seeing that damage comparison and you're wondering, well, that barely seems like a nerf. I mean, in terms of damage, yeah, but the real nerf is how long trigger nades take to detonate now. From the patch notes, the delay between triggering the grenade and it detonating has been increased from 0.7 seconds to 1.5 seconds, giving players more time to react and making it harder to time the detonation in the air. PvP players, you will feel this change immediately. Just watch as I throw a trigger nade at that dummy over there in the practice range and try to detonate the nade in the air as I throw it over his head. After throwing the grenade, even if I mash the trigger as fast as I can, the detonation is heavily delayed. I straight up can't get the nade to detonate mid-air next to the dummy. It just doesn't work. Therefore, the TLDR for trigger nades is they still hit like a truck. The blast radius is barely weaker, but they take much longer to detonate now, so you can't spam detonate them as much. Moving on to the Kettle. I'm not gonna lie, this one really hurts. The Kettle was a weapon with a pretty high rate of fire, provided you were very good at mashing the trigger really quickly. And in the past month or so, players without father figures or self-respect were setting up macros where they could click one button and instantly mag dump the entire Kettle into another player in the blink of an eye. Obviously, that was getting incredibly annoying to deal with, so Embark Studios had the idea to reduce the Kettle's maximum rate of fire from 600 to 450. Kettle enjoyers, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you will feel this change immediately, and it does not feel good. Now, I understand the critique that some players had that the Kettle felt way too lethal before to be a gray tier weapon, but goddamn, look how they massacred my boy. If you haven't effed with the Kettle post-nerf yet, take it to the practice range and mash the trigger as fast as you can, and you're gonna feel it fire much slower than before. I think they went overboard with this change. I'm personally not gonna F with the Kettle as much as I used to. Side note though, it's official. The Stitcher is now without question the best gray tier weapon in the game by a mile. Follow me on Twitch. Cereal is just cereal, you heathens, and let me know down in the comments if you think these changes were just right, not enough, or too far. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.